Hey, what's up, BGG? Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Merchant and Money Monday and BGG. Today we have a treat for all you money makers and hustlers and folks who are very interested in the financial space, financial growth, and also nonprofits. And this is a big deal. So we got a big deal with us today, Mr. Arlington Rodgers III. I call him AR3. And Arlington is a good young talent, man. This cat came out of Morehouse. He's a Morehouse man. And he's also a Goldman Sachs man. I mean, he went right to the top. So we're going to talk a little bit about money and finance, and that's kind of his passion. And welcome to the Business Growth Group. Arlington, how are you today?
Doing good. Is a pleasure for you to have me. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everybody. It's definitely great to be in the presence of Mr. Mason. He's helped me out a lot over the year, like even just getting to Goldman Sachs. And we'll get into that a little bit, but it's definitely a pleasure to be here. So hello, everybody, and thank you for having me.
Okay, cool. Hey, let's roll it back a little bit. Let's talk about coming out of Morehouse and jumping into this whole new work and finance thing. I mean, one of the hardest working cats that I've met over the years.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure. Did you pick me up on that? My internet's breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. So I heard you just going in. You just wanted to talk about just leaving Morehouse, how I got to Goldman Sachs, and just the journey. Let me see. I'm originally from San Bernardino, California. Did a lot of work in the community, volunteer work. Have been recognized. Just a lot of my volunteerism. I think in 2020, I was recognized by the California State Senate for being a 30 under 30. It looks like Mr. Mason dropped off, but I will continue going because I know we're live streaming and he'll join in a second. And so, so for those who are listening, those who are still there, looks like we got him back. So after graduating high school, I went over to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, where I actually started majoring in biology. After taking my first biology class, I quickly knew that wasn't me. It wasn't my passion. But I'm a big reader and I'm always reading. And so I ended up reading a book called The Coming Jobs War. And it really didn't talk about much. It just talked about, like what's going on with the jobs, just the state of jobs and the state of jobs and the economy and things like that, and how it's going to affect, middle class people, upper class people. And so it quickly got me to thinking about just the study of that, like what did they use, to take that kind of poll, because it was from the Gallup poll. And so I'm like, well, what did they do for that? And so that's how I fell into economics, which is what I graduated with. So I have my BA in economics, and it's been very wonderful ever since. And so after graduating college in 2020, right when the pandemic hit, I was actually blessed with two opportunities. One is how I actually ended up meeting Mr. Mason. I wanted to attend this social entrepreneurship fellowship in Boulder, Colorado for the Watson Institute, where it is an incubator for social change. And so what that looks like is that they bring people from across the world. So I was selected for about 20 people out of over 15,000 applicants to attend this fellowship, to be able to create a nonprofit, or not even a nonprofit, but just create a business, because we call ourselves social entrepreneurs. So people who have business ideas, who want to be able to spread their message, just help people. And so with that, I was able to create a nonprofit organization, which I am the founder of now. And it is called It Starts With Me Foundation. And so what we do is teach high school students financial literacy from freshman year to senior year, and we literally are attacking the unbanked population because for those who are in San Bernardino County, there is an extremely large unbanked population. And so what we want to do is to teach people how to use banks to be able to create financial wealth or generational wealth, to talk about how they can use these bank products, even something as simple as establishing retirement accounts and things like that. And so I was able to create this nonprofit, the Starts With Me Foundation, during this. And then also during that same time, this is where Mr. Mason always says I'm a hard worker. So also during this time, I actually accepted a job with Goldman Sachs, which where I am now. I'm actually currently in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I work for Goldman Sachs as a trade management analyst. And so a little bit what I do there is just kind of just literally that, right? I just analyze trades. So whenever our traders make a move in the market, we're making sure everything is settled, everything is good, everything is on point. So that way we can move to the next step and get everything kind of settled. And so, yeah, that's pretty much, the journey here. And so it's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to speak with you guys. I have a super big passion of bringing people to understand money, understand finance, because just creating wealth in general is very important, especially in the Black community.
Oh man, you're not kidding. And I remember he has so many connections. Man, he knows people I want to know. I'm telling you, and I'm still going to pick your brain on a couple of those plugs that you have for me. But yeah, with Arlington, let's talk about finance, especially for young folks right now. But I'm still teaching college, as you know, and I'm really excited right now because first time I've been doing the daytime, full time. Normally with a full time class load, and I have different students. Normally I have adult learners, and I have some young folks who just want to come in and at night. But daytime, these guys they're young, they're bright eyed.
Right.
A lot of them are working and things. So as a young person yourself, what is the number one thing you would say to someone that's just getting into investing that they should really look into?
Yeah, I think the main thing that, especially with my students that I try to teach with my high school students, is I think budgeting is very, literally the most important thing, right? Because you're not going to invest more than, what you have, right? And you're not going to invest anything you're not willing to lose. And so I think budgeting, and we talk about budgeting in terms of setting aside money for bills, setting aside money for activities, trips, family, things like that. But we can also set aside money for investing, because we are willing to lose that and things like that. And so I always I think that now, we live in kind of a microwave society, and it's so easy to invest, right? I could download a couple apps on my phone and I could be investing in the next 10 minutes. And so I think the biggest thing is just budgeting for it, right? Even if you want to invest $10, you can do that. But the main thing is just do not ever risk more than what you want to do, right? It's the same thing as gambling, right? You go to Vegas, you're not going to bet everything you have in your thing because you probably want to go to lunch later. So you want to have some money for lunch. So bet what you're willing to bet what you're willing to lose, because that's kind of how I go about it, is just bet whatever I'm willing to lose. And if I lose it, then it didn't hurt. And if I gained, it's all the better. So
yeah. Someone on my end, what I look at when it comes to investing, I'm still playing the long game. So I load up on tradition. Some of the traditional things. Of course, Apple and Microsoft, and some of those players, because I know they're going to go up and they're going to grow, and eventually they're going to split and add extra value and go back up again, and just hold on to them. I've been doing that. And that's one of my big beliefs is always buy low and sell high, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the key too. Being able to understanding that it's a long game, right? It's not a get rich quick scheme. I know that we've seen in recent months. We've seen people buy crypto or these random coins and Shiba Inu and Dogecoin and things like that, and they were able to make a lot of money very quickly, but that's so rare, right? That's just a definition of where we're at now. And so I think it's actually a testament to where we're at now. But investing is never to be looked at as a get rich quick scheme, I feel like, because that can get you hurt really quick.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Very true. It's funny you say that, from the Dogecoin and some of the coins, because it's the same thing. I ran into some friends. I'm dabbling a little bit in crypto. I've been for about a year or so now, and but I have some friends, and when we talk, they say, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I tell them, and then they want everything to be guaranteed. And I'm like, man, it's just like any other investment. Nothing is guaranteed. You have to do your homework. I'm telling you what I'm doing,
Right.
and you don't have to do it. But these are the things that people need to understand. Even if you go into crypto, you got to do your homework, and you got to understand there is risk involved.
Yes. Homework is key, right? Like just even what you said earlier, right? Just understanding that even if you're going to, we can go back to the question a little bit, right? Just to circle back, we're talking about getting into investing and starting. Like one tip of advice is getting into like different like indexes and things like that. So don't invest maybe in one company, but invest in something, like invest in like the NASDAQ or the Dow 100, things like that, things that have a group of companies that they are investing in, so you can kind of see where that goes. And then you can learn from there how to play with the market, right? Like we all know Apple is going to be pretty good. We all know Tesla is probably pretty good, and Amazon and things like that. And so I think that's just the beauty of it. Like you get to learn more just about companies. You get to really understand, and like they always say this, and like I used to hate it when I was a kid and people talked about finance like that. I used to hate it, like, well, look at what you're wearing and look at the products you use and invest in that. And like it sounds so corny, but that is really the fact, right? Because it's just a good introduction, right? Like if you just look down at your feet, oh, I wear Nike. Okay, I like Nike. I'm probably more inclined to research and understand what's going on with Nike because I consume that. And so if I'm consuming it, right, I see it every day, I probably have a good idea of what's going on with Nike. And so that can kind of teach me, how to buy low and sell high and things like that. So yeah, just word of advice. I definitely try to preach, just whatever you're wearing, just go ahead and buy some stock. Go ahead and buy some stock because it's going to introduce you into a whole nother world. Like once it's really a wormhole. It's really a wormhole.
Yeah, it's one of the things you said kind of took me somewhere for a minute. I was going back to the long game. I remember we first started the business growth group. We were in the middle of the well, I would say the early parts of the pandemic. And, when the market was just flat, man, I put a bunch of stuff up, and I had a colleague, Monica, we put advice out there to a lot of people with a lot of plays. And I'm sitting there, I was talking to my son the other day, and I remember telling people to get forward when it dropped down to like $4 or $5 a share. I'm looking at forward today, it's like over 20. Because everybody's going in, the electric vehicles,
Yep.
And then the new infrastructure bill. I was a fool. I bought Plug. I think it's called Plug. I forgot what it's called. Plug something. But it is called the symbol is Plug. Man, I bought that thing about $80 something. I lost my shirt on it, but now it's dropped. It's down around the $30 range. But now with the infrastructure bill, they're going to continue to rise. And so it's really just understanding trends too, right? Figuring out, just like we do every day, what industries are going to grow and which ones are in decline, right?
Right. And then that all just circles back. Like even just watching the news, it can help you be a better investor, I feel like, right? Like just seeing that, okay, Joe Biden and the Senate and Congress have introduced this infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill is kind of focused on reducing carbon emissions and things like that. So let me look at some stocks that may be trying to fight that. Like you said, Plug, right? Plug is a hydrogen fuel cell, I think, and I believe Ford bought it, but I know they're backed by a couple of huge companies. I don't know off the top of my head, but their mission is to kind of reduce fuel emissions and green hydrogen and fuel cell solutions and things like that. And so if the government is going to invest in it, then why shouldn't you invest in it? Oh, I think it went off a little bit. There we go. Quick little intermission. I think you're muted, Mr. Mason.
I said my internet is really whack right now, so I had to just turn it off altogether and just go off of data. So
and that's another thing too, right? We live in the virtual world, so why not invest in things that where we're going to, right? So like Zoom, for instance, I think Zoom was one of the biggest players and one of the biggest testimonies of just this new normal. Just seeing what they did, during the pandemic and even now, like, was just really, really crazy. So it's just about just paying attention, just looking out there. Like, if I know that my job is going to be primarily using Zoom, go ahead and give me some Zoom stock.
yeah, right. And look at the same thing when you look at that. I remember early on for us in BGG, we were examining stuff. So we looked at Slack and we jumped in Slack, but then Zoom just went right past Slack.
Yes.
And, it looked like Slack was going to be an early market leader. And then too, one of the things from one of my companies, my learning centers, we just invested in, again, new technology. We bought a bot, and the bot is going to allow, and it's based on a lot of the Microsoft, and Teams is going to be heavily utilized in it, but that's, again, here we are, new technologies that's going to allow us to not only be mobile, but be able to have automatic processing, getting information pulled from about, 50, 60 different employees in different locations.
Yes.
And allow us to have the type of reporting, similar to what a McDonald's would have or something, where we can pull these reports and get instantaneous information, and it's all driven by a bot, schedule and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's cool. So let's talk a little bit more about finance. I like that the personal finance thing has been good, but let's go to for nonprofits. Let's talk about that. Now, there's a lot of people that, I remember probably about a year or two ago, people were just calling all the time, and I still notice a trend of a lot of people that are very interested in nonprofits and looking at funds and grants and things of that nature. So, as being a director, tell us what drove you to that side of the business, and then also any words of wisdom you want to add there.
Yeah. So this is like my first year, so I'm still learning as I go, right? I'm still scraping the knees, as they would say. So it's been a journey, though. It's been a journey just understanding, how nonprofits work, how to generate revenue from nonprofits and things like that. One thing I'm learning that I think is a useful skill set, and I think even in all of business or even just in general, but for me, one thing I'm finding success with is just relationship building. So just having relationships, understanding, who the players are, understanding what you want to do, having a very specific goal, and executing that goal. I think that it's very important, in just boosting your mission, right? Because it all boils down to your mission, right? Because essentially, like, I'm not selling a product, I'm not selling an idea, like, I'm talking to people about something that I feel can, I don't even want to say change the world, but just help people. I think it can help people. And so what kind of drove me to that is that I've always been attracted to nonprofits. I've always worked in nonprofits and volunteered since I was a kid, as long as I can remember. My aunt is like the director of homeless children services in San Bernardino County. And so from when I was a kid, she had me out there, going to YMCA or going to the Boys and Girls Club and feeding the homeless. And so like helping people and things like that have always been, vital, to me. And then even seeing my mom, she has a very successful nonprofit in the San Bernardino. And so seeing that and seeing how it can work just really intrigued me. And I almost, I wanted to run away from it. I didn't even want to start a nonprofit, right? Like, again, I went to school, wanted to go to Goldman Sachs, wanted to come out, making X amount of money and doing the thing and just looking, and just being like one of those finance bros, wearing, the vest and wearing suits and being in New York and things like that. But the more I kind of just stayed in my focus and stayed in my awareness and wanting to be able to help people in the best way that I knew how, and even boiling down to the reason why I wanted to major in economics, I think it kind of came to, right? Like I wanted to major in economics is because I wanted to teach people the other side of finance that we don't see, right? Like I think that understanding bank policy, understanding, how the market works, how the market moves, how the market affects you. Like, I think that's so, so important. And we don't get that education. Like, I was a stellar in high school, right? I took IB classes, International Baccalaureate, for those who don't know, which is like higher than AP, right? You're ranked against people globally. And so even with me taking those classes, I didn't even have an economics class. I didn't even understand, once I left, how the market worked. I didn't understand how to create a budget. I didn't understand even what money was. I knew money as a tool. I knew that this is $1 and this is $5, and $5 could buy me this, and $5 could buy me more, versus $1. And so when I started studying economics, I said, nah, like this is missing. And especially if we talk about how we're, if we talk about, Black people and how we are, kind of oppressed, I think that once you kind of look at these things, when you look at slavery, when you look at like the housing laws and things like that, like a lot of it is just if we understood economics, we could fight it. And I think we've had leaders that try to boost that and things like that, but we didn't get in. And so I kind of went on a little rant, but just all of those things kind of boil down to me just wanting to be able to help people understand finance. And so I said, what's the best way to do it? I said, we need to teach high school students. There should be no reason why in 2020 where I can download an app on my phone and start investing, in 10 minutes, why I shouldn't understand how to create a budget for myself or even how to open up a bank account. I would like that. There's such a gap there from opening a bank account to investing. I can invest account, but I still don't know, how a bank even works. And so I wanted to be able to teach that to the kids. And so that's why I started my nonprofit in December of 2020 with me and my friend Brianna Rucker, who's my vice president. And like, yeah, I will share the website with you all on the link below. But yeah, that's why we started it. It was just a passion. It was a passion project, and we brought it to fruition. I think you're muted again. I think you're muted again, Mr. Mason. There you go.
I'm sorry about that. So yeah, that was dope. I said, particularly at a young age, that's important. Just taking the risk and jumping out there and being passionate about something. That's incredibly credible, really. Just leading life with your passion.
Yeah, it goes back to just like I'm a super big reader, like I just love reading, and so like I like having a nonprofit because I'm able to put all these thoughts that I think about every day into one central focus, and so it's definitely been a journey, but it's been a beautiful journey.
Okay, so let's talk about money in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I I had a little personal formula, and I would share it with students,
Okay.
particularly when I was teaching personal finance. And I would always say, between I would call it this was my personal thing. It was like, you know what, when you're, everybody should have, the $1,000. You should be able to earn $1,000, your minimal standard. I said your real minimal standard should be that you're earning at least $1,000 for every year on life. I said, however, when you're just getting out of school, I said your goal should be to have 4 to 5 times,
Yeah.
right, that $1,000 for every year. So if you're 20 years old, and okay, great, my goal would be 4 times 20, right? And then over time, right, when you retire, let's say, okay, you get to the single digits, someone's 70 years old, okay, I'm still bringing in at least $70,000, per year. I'm 80, I'm still bringing in, you get to the single digits, but your goal is to never get to the single digits, right?
Right.
You don't want to get to the single digits, right? But
Exactly.
because that creates limits. But if you've already have, excess funds that are, that can supplement that. But that was my, my little secret sauce. And I will put it on a little chart and show people how you get to a certain part, then you start, you got your great income earning years, probably in your, late 30s through upper 50s, and then you start to plateau off and things of that nature. But what do you think about that, man? How you like my little chart here?
No, I think it's good. Especially, coming out of college. Like I think, I think you should have a number in mind. And I didn't learn this until probably like, when I got my job, that when you graduate, you should have a number in mind, like, depending on where you want to live. Like you can do the math, you can do the homework. And so you definitely want to have a number in mind of how much you want to earn, not yearly, but monthly, right? To cover all your expenses, and plus, like, how do you want to live? And you can calculate all that. And so just understanding that once you graduate, and maybe picking your major and being disciplined in the kind of internships you get, the kind of relationships you build, just being very diligent in that can always boost that. And so especially now, one thing that I'm also learning, just being in the workforce now, outside of just working, work your way up and get promoted, and then you get more money and more money, as you promote. But you can make, you can give yourself a raise, right? Like there's people that, like, I've learned this in my job, so I don't know, this might be a secret, I don't know if I can talk about it. It's people at my job, they will apply for other positions, get an offer letter, and then bring it back to their job and say, hey, this company's offering me X amount of dollars. I really want to stay here, but I need you to match that. That's a very strategic thing that people do, that I'm seeing at my job, that I'm learning. And then 2, certifications. Like there's so many things that you could do, just to get certifications, and it can really boost your income from like 10, 15,000, literally. Like if you get some kind of project management certification, or even if you're in the tech space, right, just getting like all of the database certification. So getting like your Alteryx or your C++ or your S, I can't remember, but just getting those type of certifications that are very job specific, I think is very key, because a lot of people, sometimes we're still under the formula of, we get this job, we here for about, maybe 3-4 years, and you're like, okay, we're going to go get our MBA. And then that's going to, bring us maybe an extra, 30,000, 20, 30,000, something like that. But, there's things that you can do now to supplement your income. Like you can say, hey, like I'm worth this because, I have this certification. I'm more advanced in my skill set than this person, because I'm able to bring this skill set. And so certifications are key for sure.
Yeah. To the game of people getting those offers, that's out there everywhere. That's in every industry. So, not
Yeah,
a
I've
trade
learned that
secret
like
there.
people were doing that at my job, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So like I'm thinking, I'm just, we don't. I think it's even just a cultural thing too, right? It's definitely a cultural thing because sometimes, I feel like we find ourselves not really wanting to ask, like we're just like, oh, okay, like we're good, not really wanting to ask for more, even though we probably deserve more. We don't really want to ask for more, like it's a cultural thing. But the other people that don't look like us, they're definitely doing that. They're applying, like, no, like I need to be worth this, I need to be paid this, and things like that. And your job has it, you just got to go get it.
Yeah, but likewise for those who are out there, you gotta bring value too. So don't come in if your game is ragged.
Yeah.
Don't pull up. You might be walking out the door.
Exactly, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. You can't be coming in late every day and then demanding, another another thing. You got to be on point, because if you're on point, and then that means they want to keep you. So if you're on point, they want to keep you, and if they want to keep you, you're in a good spot. You have leverage.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So when we get to the last couple questions, but if there's anybody out there that wants to ask a question for Arlington, go ahead. You can put things in the chat. Brandy will be on the lookout. She's our producer, and we'll let her ask any questions that may come up. All right. Last couple things. Just with all those things that are going on out here in the market. And, right now, one of the things that I've learned over the last year or so, and I work with and do business coaching for a lot of, entrepreneurs. But, there's I'm dealing with a lot of military entrepreneurs. A lot of people have been around the block. And, I'm trying to get, realistically where we really need to spend our time is in the younger space, who and cracking the code there, trying to get them to lean in, because a lot of the answers they're looking for, hey, we either went down that road already or got burnt up down that road or something. But we want to be able to do more. What are some of the things that some of the trends now for young investors and young entrepreneurs that you're seeing in your eyes, in your space?
Yeah, a lot of the trends I'm seeing is like cryptocurrency. I think that's like the big one. And just going into the tech space, like I see a lot of people like going into the tech industry and cybersecurity, where I see a lot of people where they have literally like multiple jobs, like where they'll be bringing in almost like $300,000-$400,000 a year, maybe right out of school, and they don't even sometimes they don't even have a degree, right? That it goes back to kind of what I was saying about the certifications. If I get the certifications in the cybersecurity space, then those jobs are paying a lot of money, like $100,000 off, just off of your first job, which is very, very, that's very interesting to me. I'm not the computer guy, but I encourage my friends to definitely look into that and things like that. So I would say crypto, cybersecurity is a trend. Also, I think just being just entrepreneurial
Minded.
Yeah, just the entrepreneurial market as well. Thank you. As well, like a lot of people, are starting food businesses, are starting hair, dresses, and doing eyelashes, things like that. And a lot of people are upset because they're like, oh, everybody's doing hair, but no, like that's an entrepreneurship, that's a market, we could tap into it, things like that. So at the end of the day, like even if you don't like, even if you're doing it and you end up not liking it, then you're probably you're still being an entrepreneur, right? And I think that's key. I think we have to switch our focus to being workers from entrepreneurs. So that's definitely a trend. What else is a huge trend? Just a lot of people, vending machines. I'm actually getting into vending machines now. Like a lot of people are buying vending machines, getting into the vending machine space, investing in that. And then I think the last thing would just be even just people, a lot of people are getting their CDL. So I think, what is it, commercial driver's license, where people are driving for owning their own trucking companies and starting a trucking business. And I think that's very, very key. And it will, last for quite a while, especially if we look at the news, right, going back, and we're looking at these manufacturing issues and shipping issues and things like that, right? Like, we literally can't go, I don't think people understand like how essential, truckers are. Like, they're always going to be there because we can't get rid of it. We can't afford to, right? If we get rid of that transportation and the manufacturing, everything's going to shut down. Like, I seen an article the other day where it said, like, if we didn't have, if we stopped trucking industry or something like that for like 2 to 3 weeks, we wouldn't even have clean water. And so I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And like, it would take up to 8 weeks for like the entire everything to collapse. And I thought that was a really, really interesting article. And so, yeah, a lot of people are getting into into those areas for sure.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think you're right on that. And I know that who is Amazon has a great opportunity for people to start their own fleets. I can't remember, was it FedEx, somebody else too, but there's a lot of opportunities right now more than ever. And I think what happens with people who are saying, oh, we don't want, people aren't going back to work. No, people are doing alternative work now. And, they're starting their own hustle.
Yes.
I mean, it's funny. I didn't realize that, I have a son. He started doing DoorDash. Man, this cat was doing like 12 hours a day in good markets and really understood how to make it work.
Yeah.
Cats make out, $1,000 a week, dropping off food, listening to music in his car. You know what I mean? No one telling him what to do. And then,
Exactly.
so people are opting to do different things. And I love it. Traditional. Now, the other part, me as a business owner, we're constantly looking for people, to come and help us make this coin.
Yeah, but it's hard too. Like, that's another trend, we're seeing, right? Like, a lot of people are struggling to find different, they're struggling to find workers. Like, we're seeing that, like, a lot of people, like, as soon as they said we're going back to the office, like, a lot of the workforce quit. They're like, I'm not going back. Like, we've been remote this whole year. I'm not going back.
Right.
To the office. And so, like, just people were, finding alternative work. People were working from home, having 2 to 3 jobs, and it was easy for them. So I think, honestly, it's time for traditional businesses to kind of, step their game up, attract us. Because I think the one thing that they still have over our head is probably insurance, because insurance is expensive on its own. So if I have somebody paying for it, I'm definitely going to take it every time. But that's the only thing that they kind of have, in terms of leverage. But yeah, a lot of people are just, I don't want to work for somebody. I want to be able to own my own time. And so just going back to some of the things we talk about, like, it all goes back to just owning your own time. And I think you're muted, Mr. Mason.
Yeah. Yeah, let me, man, I had so many technical issues today,
No worries.
and which is really unusual. Can you hear me? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's go to Brandy. Brandy, we have any questions in the queue?
No, don't have any questions. We might need to do a part 2. There was a couple of comments about the audio. And so we might need to do a part 2.
Okay, we'll definitely do part 2. Arlington, you up for a part 2?
Absolutely, Mr. Mason. I'm always there. I told you, you got a friend of me for life. So whenever you need something, I'm there. So just let me know.
All right. Well, cool. So let's look, I look forward to catching you here in another week and a half or so. And we'll break there, but maybe we can do, when you get back in the town, we just do a live in person, man. That'd be cool.
That'd be dope too. I would love to do that. That'd be super dope.
Okay.
That'd be super dope for sure.
All right. Let's do it. All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and shut it down for now. We appreciate everybody who is out there who are either listening in now, but guess what? It was live. It's been recorded. You will see it again. and it'll also be, we'll post it into our YouTube site, and then we'll work on the sound for the next one, and we should it should be cool. And then Arlington, if you want to bring in a guest as well, okay, just can't be 50 and over.
Absolutely. No, I would absolutely love to bring in a guest. I got a couple names in mind, so I'll get their schedules, and then whenever you let me know, whenever you want to host it again, and I'll shoot it over, and then we'll just schedule from there.
Okay, cool. We'll do it in town. Okay, everybody. BGG, we appreciate everybody listening in. We got Mr. Arlington Rodgers III. Okay, he was in Atlanta, but he's back in Cali. Well, actually, now he's in Utah, making that.
I'm just all over the place.
Yeah, he's getting the bag, and we're gonna be right there with him. Okay, all right, folks. So anyway, thanks, Arlington. We sure appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
BGG out.